Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football and welcome back to Sunday School. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. This edition of Sunday School brought to you by our good friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. FlatCreekEstate.com will tell you more about their fantastic wines and their gorgeous venue a little bit later on in the program. But on this edition of Sunday School, actually, it's a simple question that I was asked that kind of sparked the rabbit hole that I went down for this edition of Sunday School. Someone asked me, "Hey, could I describe Sark's offense? Right? Like, what kind of offense is it?" And it's like, well, you got to throw a lot of different terms on it potentially, but I ended up coming down to it's a West Coast RPO spread offense. Just kind of simple, just combine a few terms. Like, you can make it sexy if you want to and call it like a spread coast RPO offense or something like that. But he heavily influenced by the West Coast offense. He talks about that all the time. The Bill Walsh tree and that Packers coaching staff with Mike Holmgren and all those guys. He talks about a lot of that stuff. He's openly discussed that. That's heavy influence. He said before he's a heavy RPO based passing game. So there's a big RPO influence. And of course the spread. Now, all those things imply different things. All those terms imply different things, or they invoke different things, right? If you talk about spread, to me, as a football theorist, I'm thinking pass first. It's a pass first mentality, almost a that's where they'll do the most damage is through the pass. Like that's what you got to try to, if you're a defense going up against a spread attack, you got to take away, or at least you got to try to allocate resources to stop the pass and defend the pass. The West Coast offense is all about, precision, timing, execution at a really, really high level, right? That's what, and in addition to all the ideology itself, but that's what the philosophy was based on. A lot of timing, being on schedule, execution, and Sark's offense, especially with Quinn, it was based on a lot of that too. It'll be interesting to see how the offense changes with Arch, which we'll get into here in a little bit later on here in this program in a second. But it's, to me, that all those to the RPO, right? RPO to me is about conflict. You're putting a defender literally in conflict. If he chooses to come down and defend the run, then you're gonna pick up the football and you'll probably end up throwing it, right? If he drops back to defend the pass, that's when you're going to hand it off to the running back. So it's literally putting a defender in conflict. So I think Sark's offense wants to combine a lot of those different elements. But within that, right, deep within that terminology, you got to examine the character traits, right? The conceptual characteristics, the identity signatures of his offense. And we do have a good sample size now to really, I think, be thorough in our summary of it, at least for a 4-year sample size so far with Sark. Mostly the same starting quarterback with Quinn, but you've seen a couple of variations. First year with Casey Thompson, Hudson Card, and then Malik Murphy thrown in there when there was an injury as well. So you Arch obviously getting time this past season, so you've seen a little bit of variation, but we'll see now a fully evolved edition of the offense under Arch. I still think it'll have the same tent poles, which we'll talk about here, but I do think there'll be added elements that we have not seen, just because Sark has said he reinvents the offense every year. He has stated that, like, that's what he does every year. He's going to reinvent the offense. It's still, like I said, basically what we'll talk about here are the signatures, the key traits and characteristics of it, but you will see his own spin, a new spin on it, right? It's like a song, and there's people keep making cover versions of it, right? And that's basically kind of what he does with his offense. But there's a new artist in Arch Manning, so it'll sound a little different. That's going to be his own little, he's going to put his own signature on it, his own unique watermark, if you will, on it. All right, but when you start talking about Sark's offense, some of the things that I think have been consistent throughout. You're looking at personnel groupings, and we talk about this all the time, but your 4-year average of 11 personnel is a little over 50%. Your 4-year average for 12 personnel is, probably hovering around 33%, somewhere around there. And you have if you want the 4-year average for the pony package or the 2 back sets, so I threw out, you're, under 9% there as well. So that's pretty much the bulk of if you look at the 4-year average, that's the bulk of your personnel groupings under Sark. He's 11 at Texas, 11, 12, and some 2 back sets in that pony package. We have seen that 6-0 line package, that he used in 22 and 23, but other than that, we haven't seen much of it. So he is, and I don't know if this season we're going to get much variety. I have predicted in the future, down the line, maybe you get some variety. This season, I'm not so sure. Last year, you did not get the 6-0 line package. We talked about that, and Sark said he didn't need it because he was so satisfied with the way Juan Davis stepped up in that role to be more than an adequate plus blocker in the run game. There's a guy that they thought would get better and better as a pass receiver. Now, that's something that we've discussed. Tight end position, they need more balance in the target share between those two. I predicted that will happen, but I'm not so sure we get more variety in the personnel groupings. I'd like that. I'd like to see him break out that Big 11, Big 12 package with an extra offensive lineman. I'd like to see the 20 personnel potentially. I'd like to see the red package. He had Alabama where there was 10 personnel, 4 wide receivers on the field, but he did have 4 first-round wide receivers that he wanted to weaponize, so it all made sense. Maybe Sark will get there. He's been really deep at wide receiver here at Texas before, but I don't know. Remember the Wildcat package? Had the Wildcat for his first 3 years and didn't see the Wildcat at all last season. Didn't need it in his opinion, but we didn't see the Wildcat. Maybe he didn't have the type of athletes that can use that, but a little bit less variety has in terms of the personnel groupings as Sark has been here a little bit longer. But we've talked about it that I love variety. I think it's good for the offense. You don't have to have a ton of it. It should be sprinkled in. I mean, it's like a seasoning. You just want to sprinkle it in. You got your main courses, but you want to sprinkle in a little bit of that variety. Let's talk about another characteristic, a key trait for it that I think will be consistent even with a new artist at the helm with Arch. The pre-snap motion. Sark's big on it. Should be bigger on it. Your 4-year average for Sark is about 56%. He should be higher than that. It should easily be in the 60s. This year he had his highest rate that I've been tracking of pre-snap motion. He was above 60%. It should be 70s and 80s. I mean, honestly, that's where a lot of the top offenses in the NFL, they're way above 65%. They're hovering sometimes in the 70%. There are a couple of teams in the 80%. The more pre-snap motion is shift, the better. It's one of those great cheat codes. I've always said one thing about Sark's offense, if I want to describe it, also an amalgamation of cheat codes. That's why it's a souped up version of whatever it is. Souped up West Coast offense, souped up RPOs, souped up spread offenses, a lot of times because of the cheat codes and the amplifiers he adds to it. One of those is pre-snap motion. I think another one could be the funkier personnel package or pre-snap motion. It works. Here's a little NFL stat for you. You go look at passer rating with motion. 2024, 96 passer rating with motion, 88 average passer rating without motion. 2023, same thing. You got a 93.8 passer rating with motion, passer rating with obviously plays that you have motion, 84.9 on plays without motion. It improves. I went back and looked at Quinn and Arch, and you go look at some of their best plays. If you talk about like targets to motion, which is when you are targeting a player who's in motion prior to the snap, at the time of the snap. Last year for Texas, 75% completion rate. You are hovering around almost 30% first down, touchdown rate when you're targeting players to motion. So motion is just one of those cheat codes that always works, and Sark is really good at using it a ton when he has it on his screen passes, on all of his favorite concepts. Sark is using a ton of motion. I mean, that just based on what I've been able to been able to document, and just what I've been able to track, just watching it. He also lately, and I've said he's got to use more motion, right? More than 60%. It should be close to 70% or even higher. Like the more the better. And it's great for identifying coverages and giving you leverage advantage, giving you free releases for receivers. There are a number of different advantages to using motion. I remember it was the Zimmer, the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys recently, not anymore, but he said that it was it's his least favorite offensive cheat code to defend these days is the pre-snap motion and shifts. And for a lot of reasons, you can agree with that because it causes a ton of disruption for the defense. It changes the strength sometimes, and then it changes the responsibilities and coverage a ton of the times. It can just be a pain, and it's something simple for the offense, but they make things very difficult for the defense. But multi-motion is one of the things that I started tracking last year, which is players when you have at least two players or more, right? Two players or more in motion prior to the snap, or you have one player motioning multiple times before the snap, right? So one player motioning multiple times prior to the snap or at the time of the snap, or multiple players motioning prior to the snap at the time of the snap, right? I'm not trying to confuse you. Those plays for Texas, you go look at it, almost 6.5 yards per rush. Yards per attempt were still over 8.2 yards per attempt. But the first down rate was really good. Your explosive around 30%. Your explosive play rate was around 13% on those multi-motion plays. I think that's what Sark's doing a lot more of. Now it's complicated. Could cause some pre-snap penalties, things like that. But I think that's one of the things that Sark's starting to use a little bit more instead of increasing the actual rate of motion, which is the number of plays that you have used with motion. He's just going to, I think, start using more multi-motion. Man, say that. It's a lot of alliteration, but you get it. Another thing, Sark staple and tentpole, the deceptive passing game, right? Deception-based passing game. It's RPOs and play action pass. He's one of the, there's a lot of coordinators and play callers out there that are really reliant on play action pass and RPO. Sark is one of them. That's why his offenses are so quarterback friendly. Also, another cheat code that always increases analytically, it increases all the metrics, right? Passer rating, completion percentage, all of those are higher in play action pass and RPO situations than they are in non-play action pass, non-RPO situations. Same thing with Arch and Quinn, tracking them this year and years prior to that. And in the NFL, no matter what you're looking at, NFL passer rating with play action pass and RPO, 101 with it, 89 without it. In 2024, in 2023, 99 with it, 85 without it. It tracks. Same thing last year with Quinn and Arch. Their completion percentage, if you look at Arch's completion percentage with play action pass and RPO, 70%. Without it, I think it drops to 67%. Just not bad, but still there's always an increase. Yards per attempt, 13.5 with those amplifiers, 10.4 without those amplifiers. Passer rating, 135 with those amplifiers, play action pass and RPO, 114 without it. And for Arch. In the Quinn, it tracks very similarly. That's that. So Sark understands that. Sark's going to always heavily embed his offense, if you will, with a ton of play action pass and RPOs. He says it's an RPO-based offense. I think the West Coast term and tag to his offense when describing it, that implies a lot of play action pass because West Coast influence and the West Coast roots have a ton of play action pass in it. But no matter who you're talking about, influence from that West Coast passing tree. So that's another thing that will be held. As a matter of fact, Arch had a higher play action pass RPO rate in his very small sample size. He had a higher play action pass RPO rate last season than Quinn had. So I mean, so there's no doubt. I mean, I just think ultimately, yeah, Arch is going to be. I think he's going to be also using a ton of play action pass. I think RPO is what he's got to get better at. I think he'll be better at play action pass than Quinn. I think Quinn was naturally better maybe at the RPO throws than Arch will be. But I think Arch will naturally get better at that too. That was just a strength of Quinn, the quick hands, getting the ball out on time, on schedule, first read. Hell, Arch, you can argue, is better the deeper he gets into progressions. And the RPO is basically quick game plus run game, getting the ball out to the first read. Sark even says he doesn't like to tag, which means to add a run concept to the run game to make it an RPO. He doesn't like to add more than one tag to it because he doesn't want the quarterbacks to be tempted to just make it a pass play. But those are Sark's words. So that's another thing. There's no doubt that's another staple of the Sark offensive ideology. Misdirection. It's hard to have stats on misdirection, but you can bank on at least half Sark's plays, if not more. That's conservatively half. You're gonna have either a lineman pulling. You're gonna have you'll have, I guarantee you, split flow in the backfield, potentially moving the pocket, or a bootleg waggle, or a half boot of some kind. Just the motions and the shifts, as we talked about, jet motion, orbit motion, rocket motion, all these different types of motion. And it's all, even the pump fakes that he uses with the quarterbacks at times, all that designed to occupy the eyes of the defense and force them to have a lot to digest and make them a step half a second slow to be able to diagnose and process what's going on. And that's all Sark needs usually. And so misdirection, and it makes you, as a defender, it makes you second guess your initial diagnosis. You second guess yourself a lot. Because by the end of the day, you're like, nah, I ain't falling for that again. I know when I see flow going that way, I need to pause and be patient. And then you can just be a step late, even though you already thought, oh, no, I knew that was actually going to be split flow outside zone. But Sark's so good at the split flow outside zone, adding a orbit return motion to it, that you thought, oh, let me be a little bit patient. They could get me. He's great at forcing defense to have way too much to process, part of adding all these cheat codes. So misdirection, no matter what form it's in, forcing the defense to have to be patient, have to wait on it just a second longer, half a second longer. I think the other thing you throw out there is he says this too. He likes movement routes instead of stop routes. Movement routes are routes where guys get the ball with an opportunity to get yards after the catch, so catching the ball on the run. And if you look at the percentile of routes, like in terms of Texas running routes at a 90th percentile at that type of clip compared to other teams in the country, like the routes that are most popular with Texas compared to the college football averages. They run the deep cross probably as much, if not more, than everybody else. He loves the swing routes, running backs, the whip jerks, the screen routes as well. Sark's big on screens. Those are, along with the post, the wheel route, the angle route, and a corner route. Those are all the routes that are probably 70th percentile and higher. The Texas routes, they're 70th percentile or higher. All routes that are built on a lot of explosive plays on those routes, right? Think about, look at the wheel route we were thinking about with Jaden Blue against Ohio State, right? Explosive plays. Even had that angle route. Angle route is that, they call it a Texas route. Essentially turns into a slant route. The running back takes it out of the backfield initially like he is running that wheel, and then cuts it back in like a slant route. They call that the angle route. He loves that out of the backfield because he wants his running backs to have vertical targets downfield. Talks about that a lot. And Jaden Blue is a primary example of that, vertical targets downfield for his running backs. and we'll get into that a little bit. But he's big. Right, that's another signature, I think, for Sark's offense. But I do think you'll see the route tree expand a little bit under Arch. I think you'll get more of those, some of the routes that are not really popular in Sark's route tree right now, at least in their route matrix, which are the deeper routes, the go routes, the vertical routes. I mean, they're running seam routes at about 30% clip percentile. They're running comebacks about a 20 percentile. If you go look at deep vertical routes, the fade routes, they're probably 30 percentile in the fade routes. On go routes, they're probably 30 percentile. They don't run a lot of those because that wasn't Quinn's strength. I do think you'll see those numbers increase, maybe even exponentially, but we know chicks dig the long ball and so does Arch. So that will increase. Arch, 21% deep ball rate last season. That was third in the Power Four, actually. If you're looking at quarterbacks with these 100 dropbacks, 11th overall. He's going to chunk it. And Quinn was, 12.4? He was 237th overall. It's going to be a big difference in those numbers. Another thing that I think is a Sark staple signature, running back targets. Texas, the only school that I saw that had two running backs in the top 10 in running back targets last season. Trey Weisner and Jaden Blue, both. They were 7th and 8th in running back targets. Jaden Blue was 7th and Trey Weisner was 8th. 58 and 57 running back targets. That's a lot. And I know Texas played a lot of games, but still a lot. And I think Sark, he's set on record. Running back is the most underutilized position in the passing game. And I think it was on display for him last season. That he's held strong to that belief. I think he's going to continue to hold strong with it, depending on the running backs that he's got. Sark's offense also known for being more of a, it's lately become more at Texas. We're talking about at Texas here, right? I'm not talking about at Bama or any time before that. It's become known for being more of a zone blocking scheme, and specifically outside zone. Doesn't mean they don't run other stuff, but in terms of what they're good at and what you have to defend, if you're playing Texas, everybody knows you got to stop the outside zone. You don't, game over. Don't matter what else you do on defense. You won't be able to stop the outside zone. You can't stop anything else defensively for them. And when teams did that, whether it be Ohio State, whether it be Georgia, hell, Arizona State actually did a good job of it too. They didn't beat Texas. They did a good job of that. It was tough for Texas offense actually to get any rhythm, because that was the staple of their running game, the bread and butter, and other concepts for them were not as effective. And so that was their most effective run concept. So that's why I think Texas is known. This Sark is known for that being his bread and butter run concept. I believe now with Cedric Baxter and some other guys like Jerry Gibson in the fold, Texas is going to start mixing it up and running a lot more downhill power gap concepts. We've talked about that. Last 2 years, Cedric Baxter, before this past year, obviously had the injury this year, and then Jerry Gibson. Those are the only two running backs Sark has had that had more power gap runs at the end of the year than zone runs. So I do think they're trending that way. But right now, that is what Sark's offense is kind of known for. They don't major in quarterback run game. We've talked about that, but the scramble element, I've said it before, scrambling is going to come back. No, not with Sark, because Sark doesn't want it. But I do think that's something Arch is going to force. That's going to be, I think he is going to kind of impose that on the offense, because that's just going to be innate in him, his instincts. He's going to scramble, and I think they're going to have the scramble drill. That's one of the new elements of the Sark offense. I don't think we've had the scramble drill. Is going to be fun to watch. Hadn't had that really since Bam Bam Sam, honestly. All right, so there you go. In a nutshell, the synopsis of the staples of the Sark offense and kind of what we know about it, the character traits of it, and how I would describe it. All right, let's get to thank you to our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. Let's thank them, folks. I've been bragging about the Super Texan for some time now, but earlier this year, our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery, they actually introduced the Super Texan at the San Francisco Wine Festival and they just wanted to see if it could compete. They've been saying it's the best red blend in Texas. Why not let it compete to be one of the best red blends in the country? Well, not only was it named one of the best red blends in the country, it scored a 98 out of 100 and was named the top red blend in the country at the San Francisco Wine Festival. So how about that, folks? Give it up for our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. You can taste the Super Texan. It's available at your local Specs, at our local HEB here. Also, they have a display at our local Central Market. I saw that as well. So the word is getting out about the great wines over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. And also, they're just minutes from downtown Austin. And also, you can check them out. They're a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. Perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery. Go to flatcreekestate.com. You can find out more about their gorgeous venue, but also find out more about their premium wines as well. Thank you very much to our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery, flatcreekestate.com. All right. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes, doing a great job as always, twisting and tweaking the dials. Really appreciate him. Thank you guys for joining us for another edition of Sunday School. We'll be back next week with another edition, and probably jump to the defensive side of the ball this time. For Matthew and for our good friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery, I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.